Let's see if this is working. Okay, I can hear myself at least. Wait for the thumbs up from the wife. Hello, everyone. Happy Tuesday. Let's see. On my side, it looks like the mic is super hot, so let me know if that's really loud. Mad Wisman girl, thumbs up from the wife. Okay, all signs are good. See if I can push this on. Flying Singer, I think I see ya. I'm guessing that's ASU Sun Devil. Let's see. Let's see if I can get this thing teed up. Oops. Sounds good to me. Thank you, Fractals. Okay. So I am in a little pit special biplane, a very fun little plane. It's also a little finicky. Looks like we got our X-Cub here. Flying Singer, I saw you just a second ago. At any rate, chat. Let me see. That's me, aka Sudbarian. I feel like okay, Neil and Sudbarian, and ASU Sun Devil. Got it. Keep those all straight. All right. Hello and welcome. So kick off a little bit about the stream while everyone gets settled. For each week, we pick a new national park to explore together. This week, we're exploring Petrified Forest National Park. For those of you with a copy of Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020, Fractal's posted that flight plan, so you're welcome to follow along. It should be fun. It's a fun little flight here. Yeah, 3 names, not at all confusing. Yeah, it's all right. Yeah, I mean, yeah, what are you gonna do? Keep it interesting, right? Okay, sorry, I totally lost my totally lost my place. So as you may know, I research the park in preparation, and then I add any new information with sources to the Wikipedia page for the park. Why Wikipedia? So there's two main reasons. It's a way to make sure the facts here are checked by others, and to give back to a living body of knowledge that goes beyond our hour here together. So to that end, if you notice anything incorrect or that could be clarified, please help fix the Wikipedia pages. As the wiki community says, be bold and go and make the updates. Quick note on this park, the Petrified Forest wiki page is grade A. It's like a featured article for it, so it was actually a very I didn't know that when I started, but it's a very good write-up already. As you may know, we'll vote then near the end of the stream for what national park we want to explore together next time. So look out for that and other posts in the chat. Also, feel free to post questions or thoughts or anything as we go, and I'll try and look at the chat from time to time. Hopefully not get too distracted. Small disclaimer, yes, I am a pilot, but we'll be taking full advantage of the simulator, so please don't try this in real life. Without further ado, I'm Jules Altus, and I'll be your pilot for this evening. So sit back, relax, and let's explore Petrified Forest National Park. And with that, I'm going to do a little takeoff roll here. Thank you, Fractals, read my mind. Okay, let's see if I can get this going. It's a touchy little plane, so we'll see if we can fly all right. Oops, passing right through. Ooh. This plane is a tailwheel plane. I do not have a tailwheel endorsement, as anyone watching may have been able to pick up on. All right. So this is a beautiful little plane for, it's got this full glass view around. The little square thing in the corner is for aerobatics. You know what angle to the horizon you are. I'll get myself oriented here. Back on course. First stop, Pilot Rock. Just a moment while I trim some things up. Oops. Okay. This game has a handy little indicator, the trim of when you're level. Makes my life a little bit easier. All right. That should get us going, okay. It's like watching the weekend's halftime show. Rough. Okay, so Fractals posted the park. Have you ever been to the park before? So yes, in the last 10 years, yes, once upon a time, or not yet. I know a couple of people had talked about going to that area in the Discord already, so. Love the plane, yeah, right? What a pretty plane. Look at that sunrise kind of view. This is one of my favorites. I've actually been saving it for a particular park, so pretty excited. But saving it for this sort of park. Got that desert vibe to it. So I believe I've been to Petrified Forest. It would have been a long time ago though, but I have some memory. Maybe it was actually Teddy Roosevelt in the Petrified Forest there, because there's petrified wood in other places too. Um, in a pre-COVID world, my wife and I were going to do a long Route 66 road trip, and this was one of our destinations on there. So one day we'll get back there, I'm sure. This is a place to go. We'll talk a little bit about that in the park, but Route 66 cuts right through it. Oh, let me show where we are relative to the world. So this is, oops, the park itself. And so we are in kind of this part of the country. We'll do quite a bit of a leg here to get into the park and then have a bunch of stops right away. And then we'll pop over. Like I mentioned, I was talking a little bit in the Discord, the Pitts is a pretty fast plane, so I may circle around a little bit. We'll kind of play it by ear. All right, what do we got for votes on this one? Okay, 3 for not yet, 1 yes once upon a time, and 1 yes in the last 10 years. All right, cool. So a couple of people new to the park. This should be fun. I have some good news for this one. So there is a friendly ranger. In fact, there's a team of friendly rangers who work together to put together the video of the visitor center. Oh, map. Thank you very much. Oops. Let's see if that worked. Thank you, wife. Okay. Yeah, yes, right? So this is the actual video that you would see if you went to the visitor center. It's a little bit longer. It's about 20 minutes long. And so what I'm going to do is break it into 3 different parts, and we'll watch different segments throughout the stream. If we have time, we'll watch all 3 of them. If not, the last segment it's really interesting, but it's not as critical, I think, to understanding what the park's all about. Let me pull this up then. Just a moment. As always, let me know about the levels. The trees are petrified. Wow. Wow. Give us the... That's right. It's all about the rangers, right? They are great, though. Okay. Let me switch over to Chrome here. Okay.
It was John Muir who said, "Nature is ever at work, building and pulling down, creating and destroying, keeping everything whirling and flowing, allowing no rest, but in rhythmical motion, chasing everything in endless song, out of one beautiful form into another." Time after time, layer after layer, beautiful rainbow-colored fossils from the late Triassic are discovered here, exposed and accessible for everyone to experience. Petrified Forest National Park holds one of the largest concentrations of petrified wood in the world. From times long past to the here and now, Petrified Forest is more spectacular than ever.
You just go out there and there is nothing around. No sounds, maybe the wind. You're just walking around in just these beautiful sculpted badlands. There's all these geological features. Paleontologists are studying the history of life on Earth. Here at Petrified Forest, we're interested in dinosaur origins, and this is a great place to find early dinosaurs.
Paleontologists at Petrified Forest National Park are exploring the Chinle Formation, An ancient landscape abundant with fossilized remains of flora and fauna from the late Triassic period.
When I look out at rocks, I see layers. And each of those layers was the land surface at a certain point in time. And animals lived on that, plants grew on it and interacted. And then eventually another layer was deposited on top. Animals and plants grew on that one, another layer on top.
As each layer is exposed, clues are uncovered, shedding new light on the spectacular story of Petrified Forest.
If we could go back in time to this part, we'd be basically sitting on the edge of a very large river channel. There were large conifer trees dotting around the edge of the channel at the time. So the ground cover would have been ferns, cycads, tree ferns, plus some plant types that are extinct today. Everything from freshwater mussels to fish, amphibians, reptiles, all the way up to early dinosaurs. When you find a bone, this is actually the remains of an organism that once lived and had a life of its own. And a lot of times what you'll find turns out to be something new that nobody's ever seen before. Just a hike up one of these cliffs is to go up several million years in time, and we're constantly thinking about that. So we do get the sense a lot of times that we're time traveling.
During the late Triassic period, the continents were joined together, forming the supercontinent of Pangaea. The site of Petrified Forest National Park would have been located near the equator, about where Costa Rica is today. The climate and landscape of the region would have been much like Costa Rica. Over time, shifting tectonic plates split Pangaea apart as the new continents drifted to their current location. Uplift, erosion, changes in climate, and volcanic activity gradually resulted in tremendous change. Today, Petrified Forest National Park is part of a huge expanse known as the Colorado Plateau. Park roads and trails provide vast vistas and wondrous walks along the colorful Badland Hills, flat-topped mesas, and sculpted buttes that make up the Painted Desert.
There's just always something fascinating about being the person looking through the glass and getting to know the stories of these animals. We get to see these fossils for the first time ever. And so we really get to know the personality of the creature that we're taking out of the rock. These fossils, they're like rocks held together by sand. And so they really want to fall apart. Plus they're about anywhere between 220 to 208 million years old. And so they've been through a lot. So you get that framing, you feel like you're watching it happen on a movie almost. It's hard for people to realize that outside of where they are in the moment, time has been moving all around them for literally millions, if not billions of years. We're just one speck in that huge expanse. I feel like I'm traveling back and forth in time all the time. Ages pass by with every drawer I open.
Minutes. Hours. Days. Manufactured measures of time have little significance here. At Petrified Forest National Park, it is the natural world that marks out time.
I love that. The minutes, hours, days. It's pretty funny. The other one I really like the title of that video. It's More Spectacular Than Ever, which I just feel like is a really good line to use sometime. Like, and the wife is getting dressed up or something, and it's like, how do I look? More spectacular than ever. Good one to go for. All right, let me read the chat. Yeah, so John Muir spent a bunch of time here. Albert Einstein visited. There's some photos of him in the park. So there's a bunch of famous people passed through here. It was right along the highway, Route 66. So. Random trivia: the airstrip we took off is located in the land of the Hopi Nation. That's cool. Thanks, Nylens. Crazy, crazy that the state lines were drawn that long ago. That's pretty funny. Yeah. I like when maps do that. They kind of show where it would be, and it's all kind of, you know, kittywampus from Pangea. It's weird that it was Costa Rica, though. Like, it's the climate of Costa Rica in this area. Yeah, it's just a different perspective on the whole thing. All right, well, I hope you enjoyed that. I thought it's a pretty well done video. I also realized, having been to a couple of national parks where they show videos like that, there's a moment where you kind of want to get up and stretch. So I hope it's kind of like a nice moment to yawn a bit, and we can come back to the video and resume it a little bit later on. All right, with that, Fractals, do you mind posting up the poll for the next topic, which is fossilization? So I talked a little bit about the preservation of these artifacts and about looking through time and things like that. So we're going to a little bit more detail on kind of what a fossil is and how things get fossilized. So the poll here: what is adpression? Is it the number of people who see an advertisement for a particular fossil, or the latest workout routine, adpression, or a type of fossil with both a compression and an impression? Give people a second to vote on that one. So what is a fossil? A fossil is any preserved remains, impression, or trace of a once living thing from a past geological age. Examples include bones, shells, exoskeletons, imprints of animals or microbes, objects preserved in amber, hair, petrified wood from the park, DNA remnants, that sort of thing. The totality of all fossils then is known as the fossil record. So all fossils that we're aware of becomes the fossil record. Kind of get some better angles going here so you can see what the area looks like. So I actually picked this particular route because there's all these buttes off to the side. And in real life, they also have a lot of green on them, which is pretty surprising. Nylens, if you've been to this area, I'd be curious if it kind of looks sort of like this, like green-topped buttes everywhere. I was a little surprised, though, but we'll get up to Pilot's Rock as another example of that, and it's green in real life, too. Kind of a cool look. So fossils. We have fossils, fossil record. There's also paleontology, which is the study of fossils, their age, methods of formation, evolutionary significance. Specimens are usually considered a fossil if they are over 10,000 years old, so it has to be a little bit older than something you just kind of dug up from 2 weeks ago. I don't remember the green top buttes, but I just did a family drive through by car. Oh, there you go. Cool. Yeah, did you guys do the Route 66 part of it? That's on my bucket list. It's a must-do in my book. Okay. Straw poll results. Number of people who see an advertisement for a fossil. 1 vote. I could see that being the thing now. 2 votes for the workout routine. Okay, and then 3. So the correct answer on this one is it's a fossil with both a compression and an impression. So we'll talk about that in just a little bit. Speaking of fossils, has anyone ever gone hunting for fossils, like either in a national park or even like along a seashore or something like that? I'd be curious if anyone has any cool fossil discovery stories. I know we did once when I have 2 younger brothers, and we went out once and were looking for fossils that were preserved in stone. I don't remember what lake it was, but they're just, every single stone had these little seashell sort of fossil outlines. It was a pretty cool time, actually. Very fun way to spend an afternoon as a kid. Speaking of which, so I was researching fossilization, and I had this thought, which is, why not create my own fossil, right? And so I'm looking at these things and going, what is it that I would want to fossilize, right? So I needed something that was at least sort of meaningful. And so what I'm going to use actually for my fossilization here is a lemon. So if you can see that. So the reason I'm using a lemon is because I went out and I picked too many lemons, and my wife has been asking me my plan for all the lemons that I picked. And of course, silly problems require clever solutions. So what am I doing with all those lemons? Honey, I am fossilizing the lemons. Okay, so how do we do that? We have a couple of choices. I'm going to run through the common ones that you'll see. This isn't a full list. For instance, I don't talk about things like a mosquito preserved in ember, but it gives a pretty good sense of the common ones that would occur. So one option is permineralization, which is a process of fossilization that occurs when an organism is buried. The empty spaces within an organism then become filled with mineral-rich groundwater. So you can think of like if you had like a lemon, the cells of the lemon, each of the cells filling with mineral-rich groundwater, and then the minerals in there kind of solidifying around it. When the minerals occupy that empty space, it can produce a very detailed fossil. And so you can actually see, I'll grab a photo real quick here. So you can see the details of what's going on. So when it's permineralized, you get this sort of thing. For permineralization to occur, the organism must have been covered by sediment soon after death, otherwise the remains will get scavenged or decompose. And the degree to which the remains have decayed determines the details that you get in the fossil. So if it hasn't decayed much, then you get a pretty detailed fossil. So some fossils only consist of the skeletal remains. Some of them will contain traces of skin, feathers, or even soft tissues. They were covered right away. That permineralization is also how petrified wood is formed. So we can look at a picture. This is a photo from the cells of petrified wood. So you can see the individual cell walls because they get filled out to that level of detail. And then let me pull another one here, which is the tree slice. This is kind of what a tree section looks like in here. Okay, no, it's just a random road trip for us. I live in Phoenix. Oh, okay, cool. Got it. Yep, found a small... Ooh, found a snail fossil. Was it just like a buried snail or like an actual part of a rock sort of fossil? When life gives you lemons, fossilize them. That's right. Yeah, that's the takeaway. Or when your wife gives you a problem to go solve, then get creative. That's another one, I suppose. Okay. So this is what the tree size sort of looks like. And that's what you would see if you went to the park is things like that. It's a little bit polished version of it, but... Now, for my lemon, this would be a good route if I want to keep a lot of the details. So maybe if you're fossilizing like a toe or an ear, maybe that's what you want to do. But for me, I'm looking for something a little bit more subtle. My lemon doesn't need that sort of detail. I'll do a quick sidebar here, and I saw Flying Singer zoom past just a minute ago. So I have... Oh, there you are. Hello, I can see your lights. So this over here is Pilot Rock. So all of the people flying along, you can circle around Pilot Rock. Let me pull up a photo of what this looks like. So this is a view that you would see of the desert from Pilot Rock. So this is sort of the real life view. And the view that we have in the game looks like this. So just to kind of set expectations. So the game is a little bit more bland in color than you might get from in the real world. I also found that a lot of the photos are at sunset. I'm going to zip forward about 3 hours here to get a little bit clearer picture. But you can see really the ripples, and there's Pilot Rock and some of its details. So that's the highest point. Actually part of a rock fossil. Cool, Fractal. So you found it as part of a rock fossil. All right. We went there on a... Okay, so cool. So you randomly went looking for fossils. That sounds like a teacher trying to figure out something to do with the kids. Today we're going searching for fossils, start digging. Oh, Nyland, that's okay. X-Cub is super slow, yeah. They're fun though, I like an X-Cub. All right, this is sort of the rippled texture of the area. So we are now in the park itself. This is the wilderness area of the park. All right, so we have one option, permineralization, which is the thing that happens to the petrified trees here. So that's one option. Another option you can do is, in some cases, the original remains completely dissolve, but it leaves a organism-shaped hole. Then you can get something called a mold. So a mold would look like this. And then the flip side of that, if the mold later is filled with another mineral, then it becomes a cast. So if you have like that shell that I just showed, if it had filled with some sort of mineral, then the flip side of it would be the cast, the thing that's created from the mold. It feels another good option for fossilizing, like an elbow maybe, but I'm not, I'm doing a lemon, so I don't need that kind of cast and mold approach. We'll keep looking for other options. Another one we could do is authigenic mineralization. So this is a really cool one. It doesn't sound like it's very common. It's apparently most frequent in some fossil beds of Illinois. But this is where, in just the right set of circumstances, the organism that dies can become the nucleus for a mineral to start forming on top of it. So like if you ever drop salt into, I think it's called supersaturated water, then it'll kind of crystallize. You can have that same sort of mineralization occur around an object, and then it looks sort of like this. So you can get a lot of details from that if you end up having that kind of thing. All right, I'll do a quick sidebar on the park. So I'm actually going to pause here as I fly over. This is called Pintado Point, and there's a bunch of other points right along here. So I'm actually going to take a pause on the game, do a little zip around here. So this is one of the views, and there's the road that comes through the park. There's tons of pullouts here, so they say that it's a very good park for a drive, so you can go through and see most of it. Apparently this was my grandpa's method for viewing parks like this, is like, all right, we're going to drive through and that's sufficient. So there you can see Pilot Rock off in the distance there in green. And you can see some of the colors. I'll pause again when we get over to the kind of famous pullout point. But this is the Painted Desert is what it's called. So you can kind of see from the colors why it's called that. Let me grab some photos here. Exactly what I did. Yeah, Nyland's exactly what I did with the wife and kids. Yep. I think they'll show some more footage of a hike later, but it seems like a cool park to go hike around. That said, my plan on Route 66 with my wife is to do the same thing, just kind of drive through and see it. Okay, so this is Painted Desert. That's what we're looking at in the game. That's from Whipple Point, which is right near there. I will pull up the Painted Desert Inn. We're just about to fly over. It shows up as just a house in the game, but this is the Painted Desert Inn. Is a very famous stop along Route 66. And then the last place is going to be another vantage point just down the way, and it'll look kind of like this. So again, it's the Painted Desert overlook. This is from Tiponi Point. Flip back here. All right, so right over, I think you can see my mouse in here. So right over, excuse me, that's the Painted Desert Inn is over there. So we'll fly over there next. See if I can lose some altitude here. Okay, so other options. So we have that authigenic, mineralization, which is one option, but it's a little bit fancy for me, a little too complex of a process. I don't really want to do that for my lemon. It's just a lemon. Another option we have is replacement and crystallization. So, all right, so let me pull. So this is Route 66, or part of it, and there's where the painted hotel is. Pause real quick here, because this is actually a pretty, hey there, Flying Singer. This is Painted Desert Inn. I just showed this one, but it's kind of cool to see where it is in the world. You can see it's right on that cliff with this incredible view. And then the building itself is this really neat style of architecture. We'll talk more about that when we get to by Merced Verde National Park. Okay, and then the Painted Desert view is this one, is the one I mentioned. This is kind of the famous one you would see if you pulled off of it. All right, let's keep going. Oops. So you actually, when you bring a plane down, you don't really want to point the nose down. You actually want to bring the power back and let the plane naturally come down. And so that's what I did. And then I had no power. So everyone always says your flight instructor comes back into your ear when you're flying a plane. And it's funny, it happens in the sim too. I can hear my instructor going, okay, reduce power, let the plane come down. Anyway. All right, so another option we have is replacement crystallization. So this is if like you have a shell or a bone, the shell can be replaced with sort of crystals, and those result in something that looks like this. Different kind of fossilization. Again, you have a lot of detail that you can get from this, but it's a little bit fancy for my taste, and also a little bit fancier than I think our friend the lemon deserves here. No offense, Lemon. Okay. Another one that we have as options is something called adpression. So the question at the beginning was about adpression. This is a mix of compression and impression. So basically what happens is if you have an organism that is taken and crushed between two layers, that compression and impression will be two different fossils that occur. So it's like sedimentary rock that undergoes physical compression. When that happens, it can leave preservation of the animal. So most commonly you'll see this in plant. So this is kind of what a compression looks like. We can also get it in an adpression in animals. And I wanted to use this picture because it shows both the impression and the compression. So compression is the side that has the remains still there. So you can kind of see a little bit of the 3D sticking out because the animal is actually still on that side. In the previous plant picture, you could see this would be the compression side because the actual material is still there, that blacker part. And the animal, the impression then is the kind of inverse image that's going on. So you got the other part of the fossil that still stays around, but it's the opposite, the mirror image of it. So you get kind of two out of it. This one's more my favorite as far as the lemon goes. It feels like kind of a cool process. It's got a new word, and I love new words. So as far as the lemon goes, it's sort of winning. All right, let me flip back here. Flip the live stream. So we are going to Puerto Pueblo next. And there's not much you can see in the game, unfortunately, but I will show what this looks like. And they talk a little bit about it in the video, so we'll come back to that too. So this is the ruins of Puerto Pueblo. So I mentioned they'll talk a bit more about that. And then I'm going to show the teepees while I have this up. So we'll pass by there next. They don't look like much in the game. In real life, though, they're really cool, and you can see the layers very clearly. They're right along the road. So you drive by them, they just look directly like that. So I'll point out when we pass by those, but it doesn't look like a lot in the game, I'm not going to lie. Okay, so those are our options then for fossilization, excuse me. There's a couple other things that can happen. Carbonization, coalification is like if it gets pressed so much that it becomes just the carbon remnants or the coal remnants. So you get something that looks a little bit like this. So that's a remnant of probably a leech. And coalification, similar, just typically if it's woody, then you'll get coalification instead of carbonization, excuse me. All right, so that's fossils. So those are kind of our options that we have here for our plant. I'm gonna do a quick pause on the other side of this so we can see the teepees. So like I mentioned, they're not so let me go a little bit further here. They're not super clear in the game, but you can kind of see where they are relative to the road at least. So there's the teepees. And so, yeah, the color doesn't really come out, but at least it gives a kind of sense of where they are relative to everything else. All right, next stop, Blue Mesa. Got a lot of stops right in a row here. So let me show, this is what Blue Mesa looks like in the real world. So that's that part of it. And then you can actually see the petrified logs in Blue Mesa a little bit better. That's what it looks like. You kind of actually see those logs. All right, hey there, Flying Singer. Okay. Cool, so there you go. So there's other types of fossilization that occur, but those are some of the really common ones that you might come across. So in summary, fossils are any preserved remains, impression, or trace of a once living thing from a past geological age. Typically, they need to be over 10,000 years old, more or less. The petrified forests of this park are from permineralization, excuse me, although there are many other ways a fossil can be created. Those fossils. So now we have enough information to decide how to fossilize our lemon. We've talked about that there's a lot of different degrees of detail you could go for depending on how you want to fossilize. I'm really leaning towards more of like hint of lemon, you know, like if you get like a cold glass of water and you got a little bit of lemon soaking in it, like that's kind of the essence I want to go for. So I don't want to do anything too detailed like permineralization, excuse me, or like a cast mold. Those are probably too direct to replica. I think the one that I really want to go with is adpression. Couple reasons. It's a new word. I love new words. It's a cool process. And as a bonus, I get this sort of duality with it, where there's going to be the compression on one side and the impression on the other side, sort of like a his and hers of the fossil world. And so that way, the next time my wife says something like, "Isn't that a lot of lemons?" It doesn't really seem like you have a plan for whatever thing I'm leaving around the house, whatever piece of food I'm leaving around the house. Now I can just say, "Don't worry, honey. There's definitely a plan. I just need about 10,000 years for it to come together." All right. So with that, that's fossils. Let me pull up part 2 of here. I'll show Jasper Forest real quick. So we are flying over Jasper Forest right now. And again, it doesn't look like a ton in the game. You can see sort of the road. I'll flip over to here. So that's what it looks like in real life. All right. And what I'm going to do, I think, because we have 2 more stops on here, and let's do this. Let's actually double back. So I'm actually going to fly back up to where we started and go see these parts from the other direction, which is good because it's pretty actually to see them from the other way. This plane is a little faster than I anticipated. And so then I will flip over to part 2 of our YouTube video here. So this is the same visitor center YouTube video from before. Oops, just a moment while I get myself organized. Okay, here we go. So flying back, doubling back in the direction we came from, and streaming up the video. Same thing, let me know if the volume's okay.
We sit right at this crossroads of these major corridors where people have really been moving back and forth across northern Arizona for over 10,000 years. One of the missions at Petrified Forest National Park is to preserve the cultural history. Petrified Forest is the only national park that preserves a piece of Route 66 passing through it. The Painted Desert Inn was built in the mid-20s. People were able to get off Route 66 and stop somewhere, get a bite to eat, spend the night in the hotel.
In the 1930s, the Civilian Conservation Corps began constructing several projects, including the renovation of the Painted Desert Inn and the development of the Rainbow Forest Complex at the southern end of the park.
Sorry about that. I switched over the game. I
The
forgot it
Painted
stops.
Desert Inn, now a museum and National Historic Landmark, features a series of large
going. I think you can
murals
hear the audio.
painted by
Sorry for that. I was probably talking over the audio too. So when I flip to the game, it stops playing on Chrome. It's a little too clever. Hopefully you heard at least some of the pieces on here. I will go back just a minute because it's got some really cool images.
Bite to eat, spend the night in the hotel.
In the 1930s, the Civilian Conservation Corps began constructing several projects, including the renovation of the Painted Desert Inn and the development of the Rainbow Forest Complex at the southern end of the park. The Painted Desert Inn, now a museum and National Historic Landmark, features a series of large murals painted by celebrated Hopi Indian artist and educator, Fred Cabote.
These murals depict his visual stories of different aspects of life in the Southwest. One of the murals at the Painted Desert Inn is the Hopi to Zuni Salt Lake mural, depicting a story of moving between the Hopi villages across the Southwest, hundreds of miles to Zuni Salt Lake, and coming back home again. Today, people come down Interstate 40, but Interstate 40 is following much older routes. Follows Route 66. Route 66 follows the Old Trails Highway. But all of these kind of historic routes are following much older routes. We have evidence of human occupation going back at least 13,000 years.
In order to survive, people used petrified wood for thousands of years to make stone tools, including arrowheads, spear points, and scrapers. At Newspaper Rock, petroglyphs were left behind by generations of ancestral Puebloan people who lived, farmed, and hunted here. Present-day American Indian descendant communities have profound connections to this land and provide insight for visitors seeking to understand what is represented in the petroglyphs.
We have a lot of interest in rock art here in the park. It's a way that people can see something that a person directly in the past created.
At Petrified Forest, archaeological discoveries reveal the transition from the nomadic hunter-gatherers of the Archaic period to the settled farming communities of the basket maker period. Through time, basket maker pit house dwellings gave way to the large-scale above-ground Pueblo period structures, represented by Agate House, located near Rainbow Forest, and Puerco Pueblo, located near the Puerco River.
As an archaeologist, we get to see how people in the past lived. We can try to reconstruct what their daily lives were like. We get to try to really travel through time.
Over 200 million years ago, toppled trees were buried in sediment along the ancient river system that used to flow through this land. Instead of decomposing, the porous wood absorbed the minerals from the silica-laden water, and over millions of years, quartz crystallized within the wood's cellular structure. Impurities in the quartz, such as iron, carbon, and manganese, created the rainbow of colors we see today.
They are vivid and striking in color. Rich Byzantine red, deep greens and purples and yellow, white and translucent or dark, and all color blendings. These logs show the bark, the inner fiber, and the veining as perfectly as would a living tree. Lillian Whiting, visitor to Petrified Forest, 1906.
Millions of visitors like you have left park resources in place for everyone to enjoy today. Petrified Forest is comparing present-day images of the park's most important sites with historic photographs from the same vantage point. The comparisons show that the vast majority of petrified wood is right where it was 80 to 120 years ago. Help honor the legacy of Petrified Forest National Park and protect its spectacular resources.
It's pretty cool, right? I love the Route 66 history. And we'll see the Agate House in just a second, too. That's one of the cooler parts of the park. Kind of back up by Painted Desert again. I got a cue card from the wife that the plane's kind of loud, so let me know if that's the case. I can pause and turn down the propeller noise, too. Got some extra flexibility there. Wow, Nile Ends. I was a guest at the Hopi Nation for a week when I was a kid. They allowed me to sit in their underground kiva to watch a ceremony. We'll never forget it. I believe that must have been incredible. And a full week too that's a good amount of time. Very neat, very cool. One thing I'll point out from that film that I thought was really interesting, when I was researching, you can tell that the park rangers here really want to make the park more accessible, but the park has this reputation for people stealing petrified wood. And so there was a concern that over time, all of the resources of the park would be depleted. And so past superintendents of the park have been closing down access to things. And so they did that rephotography process where they took a photo of 100 years ago and a photo now, and what they found was that the resources are basically the same. And so they're, as of like 2018, are trying to make this case for opening up more and more of the park and really trying to make it something that the public can experience more parts of, which I really appreciated. It felt like the park rangers watching out for you and me as just average people who'd want to go visit it. So I wanted to call that out specifically because it's a little bit random in there, but it's really meaningful to them and to us because it means we can go see more of the park. All right, Fractals, you want to take us into our second topic here? Well, Fractals posts up that poll. I went back and forth on the topic for today. So plate tectonics is a really big part of this. Puebloan people were huge parts of this, as well as a lot of geological formations. But there's also other parks in the area that we get to talk about those kinds of topics. So I went a little bit of a different direction. Today, what I want to talk about is something called a living fossil. And it's a living fossil where you can find fossils of the now old versions of it still around in the park. So this particular fossil is called the ginkgo tree. So let me show you. You might recognize this, and I'll read up that chat. So this is a fossil of a ginkgo tree, and then this is the modern leaves of a ginkgo plant. Okay, so the poll for this one: what is bolting to a ginkgo tree? Is it quickly growing to a height of about 33 feet before elongating its side branches? Is it leaving its blind date only after a few minutes, usually through a bathroom window? Or attaching its roots to available anchors, like a nearby bridge or other structures? So what is bolting? Fractals, I see you put in your favorite choice for the second option there. Add a little bit of extra, a little flair in there. I'm just teasing, Fractals. I put that one in there. Okay, so while people are voting on that one, what makes something a living fossil? It's a living organism that are members of a taxon that has remained recognizable in the fossil record over an unusually long time span. So they show little morphological divergence, whether from early members of a lineage or among existent species. So those are the two requirements. One is that it has to have remain recognizable across the fossil record, so it hasn't changed much. And then it hasn't diverged much from its original lineage, so they all kind of stay the same. So you can find it historically, and then also it's pretty uniform in what it looks like and how it behaves. There's an optional requirement on a living fossil, but usually it's there, which is that they tend to have little diversity among them. So a typical living fossil is not a very diverse thing. Out of curiosity, does anyone have Fractal shaking my head? Yeah. Okay, so does anyone have a favorite living fossil? And I'll give my favorite as maybe a reminder of what these are. So mine is the coelacanth, which looks like this. Those of you who also went on an Animal Crossing binge over your quarantine experience may recognize this as a fish in Animal Crossing. This is part of the reason that I like it so much. I think they actually call it a living fossil in the game even. This is a kind of classic example of it. The ginkgo tree is another example. I don't know if anyone else has other ones that are particular favorites. I'd be curious. So the definition around living fossils is a little bit fuzzy, but we're going to talk about this one specifically. So the ginkgo is a genus of highly unusual non-flowering seed plants. Scientific name is also used the English name. The rate of evolution has been slow, and almost all of the species went extinct about 3 million years ago. So there's only one species of ginkgo tree that remains, Ginkgo biloba, which is found in the wild in China and is now cultivated across the whole world. There's a little bit of a sturgeonfish. Fractal sturgeon are living fossils? That could be. This is a fuzzy definition, so it's, yeah. I know sturgeon were though. That makes sense. So ginkgos are weird though because there's a bit of a paradox. It appears that the existent ginkgo, which is, when I say ginkgo from now on, I'll kind of mean the one that's still around, has historically occurred over a remarkably wide range and had remarkable genetic flexibility, and it can evolve genetically. So it can actually create offspring that kind of go in different genetic branches. But despite being able to do all of that, it never really showed much of what's called speciation. So speciation, an example of that would be like Darwin's finches, right? So you have one papa finch, and then all of the lineage down through history kind of evolve into their particular niches. This is one of the big things that Darwin studied. Ginkgos didn't really do that, which is kind of weird because they could. Like there's nothing stopping them from being able to. They just never really did. Oops, okay, let me quick pause here and flip around, show you. Hi there, Flying Singer. So we got Agate House, and we just passed, right over there is the Visitor Center. Let me show quickly. So just off the Visitor Center, there's a lot of these trails. So we have this sort of thing. Horseshoe crab. Yep, horseshoe crab is another good living fossil, yep. Fractals are... Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't know if sturgeonfish also counts or not, but I also have heard them called out as a living fossil. All right, this is the Agate House. You also saw it in the video. I'll show that one. That's just ahead of us here. All right. So we'll fly to the Agate House and then we'll start making our way off to the airport. So it's odd, right? Because they could evolve genetically. They were super widespread. They could have filled a different niche, and they didn't. And so there's a lot of speculation on why that may be. Some of the reasons they think: extreme longevity of the plant. So a modern ginkgo can live apparently up to 2,500 years. That's what is reported. It has a slow reproduction rate, and although it has a wide, apparently contiguous distribution, it really is restricted to a very specific streamside environment. And so it could maybe live in a lot of places and lived a lot of places throughout the world, but it really liked to live along these streams. And so, oh, I didn't show a picture of what it is yet. Okay, hold on. I'll get one up in a second here. So this is a ginkgo plant. So we all are on the same page of what I'm talking about. Ginkgo tree. It's very tall. So although it could specialize, maybe it just got really good at living like it liked to live. So they evolved in an era before flowering plants, where there's ferns all over the lower parts of the ground. When you have ferns and low shrub everywhere, what the ginkgo would do is bolt. And so when it bolted, it would grow really quickly up to a height of about 33 feet. Let's see what our poll votes on. Ooh, okay. I put in a little bit of a trick question here. I usually have one pretty obvious answer. So the answer for bolting is that it grows up to about a height of 33 feet before it starts to elongate its branches. So kind of bolting out of the ground. And this is to avoid, not to avoid, but to get away from the other ferns that would be on the ground. And they had a couple of other adaptations that we'll talk about that make them very good at surviving these things. The other piece of ginkgos that's really cool is during the autumn, their leaves turn this really bright yellow color. And it usually only lasts for about 1 to 15 days, so it's not a super long time, but it's just this gorgeous, gorgeous yellow. They have a number of adaptations, so they're disease insect resistant wood. They can form aerial roots, which means that their branches can actually form roots out of them if they need to, and they can live for a super long time. They're also capable of growing from embedded buds, which are like this gnarly part at the bottom. If the rest of the tree had something happen to it, they continue growing out of this. It has enough nutrition to start a new tree, which is a pretty good adaptation. Yeah, there's studies that show that they don't age very much. There's a really famous example of the ginkgo tree. There were actually 6 trees that were growing between a half mile and a mile and a quarter, from the 1945 atomic bombing of Hiroshima. And those 6 ginkgo trees all survived the bomb blast. So they were within a mile and a half each of this bomb, and all of them survived. Most everything else in the area was killed or charred, at least, but the ginkgos were just charred, and then they were soon healthy again. Pretty incredible. There's a couple interesting adaptations. The leaves themselves are pretty famous looking. So this is a ginkgo leaf. I showed this a little bit earlier. It's also the symbol of Tokyo. So if you go to Tokyo, you see this. That's a ginkgo leaf, where it comes from. All right, so I'm paying attention to the time here, and kind of to summarize, the ginkgo tree is a living fossil we talked about, and it hasn't really changed much in the last million years it's been around. Despite being widespread and able to speciate, the ginkgo has remained basically how it always was. It is likely due to its extreme longevity, long reproduction rates, and a preference for the sort of streamside environment it grows best in. It is a plant which is very good at surviving those atomic bombs we talked about, and its leaves turn a beautiful gold yellow color in the fall. As for myself, all the ginkgo research has really got me thinking about this sort of ability to survive despite very particular requirements. So requirements on the climate, right? And as my wife knows well, I survive best in temperatures from about 75 degrees to 85 degrees Fahrenheit, no humidity, good flying weather, and plenty of water. So maybe if I had that combination all the time, I too would not evolve for millions of years. No, but really, I think the real trick, the real thing that ginkgos bring to the equation is this incredible chill energy, you know? Like not enough water? No sweat. I'm going to grow some aerial roots. Or like problems on the surface? That's fine. I'll just start growing again from my embedded buds. Or like atomic bomb blast? Sure, why not? The secret to a long and happy life, it seems, is to be like the ginkgo. Find your happy place and don't give a darn about anything else. All right, so we're about 4 minutes left, and the video for the rest of the visitor center is good. I'll post it in the Discord afterwards if anyone would like to watch it. I'll post the start time that we're at too, so you can check it out if you want to jump in there. But we will close out here today. Close out here today then with that. So thank you, Fractals, for posting that up. Our park options for next week: Dry Tortugas National Park, Channel Islands National Park, and National Park of American Samoa. You know, I wrote that joke about the tropical me surviving in 75 to 85 before I picked the parks, and I wonder if that had something to do with the choice of like basically all island parks. I haven't really thought about that. Anyway, I'm excited. All three of these are pretty cool. And while people vote on where they want to go next, do a little recap here. So today we talked about Petrified National Forest, talked about fossils, talked about the process of fossilization, fossil records. We also talked about the ginkgo tree and learned a little bit about how it evolved and what it means to be a living fossil. Fractals post up the, yep, okay, so Fractals already posted the survey, a link to the community and Twitter. I do appreciate all the input, so definitely feel free to send over comments on the survey. It's very useful, and I try to kind of tune in adjust the show as I get more feedback on those. So thank you for all the people who have put in feedback, and anyone else who has new ideas, feel free to throw them over there. If you want to come hang out in the Discord community, it's always a fun place to be. I'm talking about the national parks, other adventures, kind of whatever comes to mind. And with that, Fractals. Ooh, perfect. Ooh, close race. All right, Dry Tortugas National Park winning with 3 votes. Very fun. Results are in. Yeah, that's right. Okay, cool. I'm excited to explore Dry Tortugas with you all next week. So with that, thank you for being my co-pilot today. And until we meet again, stay curious and keep on exploring. And I will see you all next week.